Thank you so much, Grace, for your introduction. Um, I am so honored and delighted to introduce Michelle Ann Johnson. We're excited to have Michelle back again for the leadership training. At last year's summit, Michelle spoke on the panel about owning your power in a male-dominated world. And as a facilitator, consultant, and coach, Michelle specialized in helping leaders at all levels prepare for high visibility presentations. She has worked internationally with Fortune 500 companies for varieties of industries. And in her former career, Michelle was a professional performer in Los Angeles for over 20 years. She co-founded an award-winning theater company, wrote and performed in sketch comedy troupes and her own one-woman show, and has guest starred in over 30 of the top television shows of the last 20 years. Michelle has a BA from UCLA in psychology, an MA in spiritual psychology, and an MBA from UNC Canon Flaggers Business School. Michelle, my apologies if I've mispronounced anything. Michelle is also an MBTI, which is Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Certified Practitioner, which help people identify their personality type, strengths, and preferences. Michelle loves singing and is currently teaching herself how to play piano. Michelle, thank you so much for being here and welcome back.
Thank you, Rosie. Great job. Thank you so much for introducing me. And it's so great to be back here at the She Can Leadership Summit. And from what I've heard from you guys so far, you are already thinking about empathy in a very nuanced and sophisticated way. So I'm really excited to be talking with you. You already have a really good foundation so far. You've heard for a couple of hours now from some fantastic women talking about empathy from a variety of perspectives. And so what I want to do with the remaining time today is to try to tie some of these ideas together and look at empathy through the lens of communication. So as a consultant, I work with business leaders and professionals to help them communicate more effectively, but more specifically, I specialize in presence, which is how to present yourself in a way that is authentic, confident, and purposeful. And so as you ladies continue on your journey of leadership and continue enacting change in the world, I want to help you take all of this valuable information and increase and amplify and enhance your presence and how you show up so that you're making an even greater impact. And I want to start with a story about the first time I was in jail. And I didn't do anything wrong, I promise. I was there to facilitate a personal transformation class with a group of men at the Men's County Jail in Los Angeles. And I was told that there was going to be about 12 to 20 men in this group. And when I got there, it was me in a room of about 50 men in their jailhouse blues with the cell door behind us, right? And so to say that I was a little intimidated is an understatement. But to my great surprise and to my great honor, as I started to share and speak, they listened and they followed my lead, not just for that first session, but every week for the next 8 months. And I'm convinced that the reason why they accepted me in that position is because I was leading from a place of empathy. I made it clear that even though I'd never been in jail, I was very similar to a lot of those men. I too had experienced childhood abandonment and had come from a broken home and had been homeless and had experienced food insecurity and instability and a lack of role models. I could relate to their experience. And so my experience gave me authority. And it helped me to create an authentic connection with people who on the surface seemed very different from me. So a very practical definition that I use for empathy is it's the ability to identify with another person's thoughts, feelings, and attitudes. That's all it is. Identifying with another person's thoughts, feelings, and attitudes. And so the reason why that's important is because no matter what you do in life, especially when it comes to leadership. Your success and your effectiveness depends on relationships. You just can't get much done without other people. And so empathy helps you to create and maintain and deepen relationships. And it does it in 3 ways that I want to highlight right now. So empathy helps you to create connection, it gives you credibility, and it heightens charisma. Connection, credibility, and charisma. I call these the 3 C's of presence. If you can connect with people, if you are credible and you're charismatic, you have presence. And nobody exemplifies this more than Miss Oprah Winfrey. I know you all know who Oprah is, right? Media mogul, entertainer, businesswoman. I believe that one of the reasons why she's been so successful is because her superpower is empathy. Throughout her career, she's been very open with her life and with all the challenges that she's had, from childhood abuse to abandonment by her mother, challenges in relationships, struggles with her weight. Even though she's a bazillionaire, you still know that she's a real person with real problems just like you. And that's what creates the connection with so many diverse people and creates such a strong followership all over the world. And because she's been so open about her life, she's credible. You believe her. When somebody knows that you understand them because you've been through something similar and that you're speaking from a place of lived experience, you're believable. And people trust that what you're saying is the truth. And then lastly, think about how charismatic Oprah Winfrey is, right? So empathy gives you charisma. Think about how charismatic Nelson Mandela was because of his empathy. Think about Malala Yousafzai. Think about the empathy that Greta Thunberg has for the planet, right? So when you are speaking from a place of deep empathy, it makes you magnetic. People want to talk to you, they want to know you, they want to listen to you, they want to follow you. So connection, credibility, and charisma. And empathy is really the common denominator. And again, think about what connection, credibility, and charisma do to your presence and how you show up. So I talked a little bit about why empathy is important, what it is, and now I want to talk about how you can develop it. Again, this is the practical guide for everyday empathy. So I want to make sure that you guys are walking away with some concrete skills for practicing this in your everyday life and in your interactions. And so the first skill I want to talk about is authenticity. And I know you guys have been touching on that throughout the day. And you heard how your relationships with others really begins with your relationship to yourself, right? Connecting with others begins with connecting with yourself. So empathy really does start with authenticity. What's authenticity? Well, a simple definition that I use for authenticity is that it's the degree to which you know yourself and show yourself. You might have heard this from the last summit that I did last year. The degree to which you know yourself and show yourself. So there's 2 pieces to authenticity. There's self-awareness, knowing who you are. But then once you know who you are, you got to show and share your authentic self with other people. So you need both of those pieces to be authentic. And when it comes to knowing yourself, I know that the thought of, gee, who am I? Sometimes that can be a little daunting. Like, where do I start? I like to think of knowing yourself in 3 different levels of self-awareness. And the first level is the level of your internal state, your thoughts and your feelings. So much is going on around you all the time. There's cell phones and there's all this, it's so easy to get swept up, and it can get hard to discern what your true thoughts and feelings are. And so this is where mindfulness comes in. I know you guys talked about that earlier today. The practice of mindfulness, of checking in with yourself throughout the day. What am I thinking right now? What's on my mind? Am I present? Am I thinking about something that just happened? Am I thinking about something that's going to happen? What's my self-talk? What's going on in there? How am I feeling? Am I content? Am I anxious? Am I sad? Am I energized? Am I tired? Do I need some self-care? So checking in with yourself and identifying and honoring your thoughts and feelings is a really important step in uh, cultivating authenticity on a daily basis. The next level of authenticity is the level of personality. So your personality traits and characteristics and preferences. And I think that this is what people connect with first when you ask them, who are you? They think about, well, what movies do I like? What's my sense of humor? What are my hobbies? So that's the level of personality. But this level is also about, how do you process information? Are you analytical? Are you a people person? Are you innovative? Are you creative? Are you an introvert or an extrovert? It's also the layer of your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, that core ethics that you guys talked about before, your morals. What do you believe about yourself, about other people, about the world in general? So this level of personality, knowing yourself at this level, is really important to having a strong sense of self-identity. And so the more that you can connect with yourself and know yourself at this level, the easier it is for you to show yourself and share your authentic self and your personality, which again is that important second step in authenticity. And it also helps you to empathize and connect with people on that level of shared interests and similarities and commonalities as well. And then the third level of self-awareness or knowing yourself is the level of lived experience. So everything that you've done or everything that's happened to you from the time you were born to the time that you're sitting here listening to me right now. And it's not just about what you've experienced, but it's about the meaning you give to that experience and what you've learned from that experience. How do you take all of that experience and all that rich resource and turn it into knowledge and wisdom that you share with other people? So connecting with yourself at that lived experience level is also about having pride and appreciation for the good stuff that's happened, having self-compassion for the challenging things that have happened, processing that information. And so the more that you can connect with yourself and appreciate yourself at that lived experience level, it really helps you to truly understand what other people are going through, because you can connect what they're saying to something that you have directly experienced. So those are the three levels of self-awareness that I use. Authenticity, becoming more authentic, is a lifelong pursuit. You don't just wake up one day and, okay, I'm done, I'm authentic. Unfortunately, it is a journey. But I think thinking of knowing yourself at those three levels can help you to put it into practice. Let me give you a couple of other skills to put into practice as you practice empathy. So you've got your being more authentic, cultivating authenticity. The next skill I want to talk about is empathetic listening. And this is similar to active listening, which I think you guys touched on today as well. It's just a little bit of a different spin. So when you're talking to someone, or they're talking to you, really, there are different ways to process information. So you can use informational listening, which is where you're just listening for the content or the details of what they're saying. You can use critical listening, which is where you start to form opinions or evaluate what people are saying. Does this make sense? Do I believe them? Do I agree with them? So that's the level of critical listening. And then there's empathetic listening, which is listening not just for what they're saying, but for how they're saying it, listening behind the words. And so if you can start to, as you're going through your day and having conversations with people, start to be more sensitive to that empathetic layer. Because again, think about the definition that I gave for empathy, identifying with another person's thoughts, feelings, and attitudes. Well, you guys know, I'm sure, that often people aren't explicit about what they're thinking and feeling and what they believe. You've got to kind of read between the lines. And so that's where empathetic listening comes in. It's listening to nonverbal cues. What's the tone of voice? What's the facial expressions? What's their behavior as they're speaking? What's the language that they're using or the word choice, picking up on specific word choices? That can start to give you a lot more information, not just about the content, but about the speaker as well. And so this level of empathetic listening, as you start to implement it, you'll see that your conversations take on a different tone and they start to get deeper and richer, and it makes it more easy for you to start to build rapport with people. So once you start to listen more empathetically, the next step is to communicate that you empathize. And this might seem like, duh, no brainer, but I swear people do not do this enough. You know what? I had a boyfriend that I dated. He had a very interesting communication style. So if I would tell him something that happened to me, he wouldn't give me the verbal cues that let me know that he was listening or that he understood, like, oh, that's interesting, or that's great, or that sucks. He wouldn't give me that verbal feedback. And so the result was that I felt like he wasn't listening to me. And he would assure me, no, I'm listening. I totally understand. He just didn't think it was important to give me the verbal affirmation. And so, you know that adage, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? Well, if you empathize with people, but they don't know that you do, does it really count? So communicating your empathy closes the empathy feedback loop. If one of the purposes of empathy is to create connection, then you've got to let people know that you empathize, because that's what creates the bond. And you do this through simple, empathetic phrases. And I know you already do this. I just want to highlight what you do so you can do it more intentionally. When someone's talking to you, you go, oh, I totally understand. Or I can relate to what you're saying. Or if that was happening to me, I'd probably feel like this. I'm sure you felt frustrated or angry. You start to use emotional language, or, you know what, I'm totally the same way. I think X, Y, Z, right? That's how we communicate our empathy. You can even take it a step further and share your experience, share that personality trait or characteristic that makes you empathize, hopefully without hijacking the conversation. But sharing your experience and sharing your common personality traits and characteristics, again, allows you to practice authenticity in your relationships. And it also creates that bond and really makes it a dialogue and a two-way conversation. So just to recap, we've talked about why empathy is important, how it creates connection, credibility, charisma. I'm giving you those 3 skill sets: cultivating authenticity, practicing empathetic listening, and then communicating your empathy with just conversational phrases, simple verbal cues that communicate that you are empathizing. So before we go into breakouts, we're going to give you an opportunity to think about the stuff that I've just talked about. But before we do, I just want to do a quick Q&A. Anybody have any questions about anything that I've said so far before you guys start putting some of this into practice in your breakouts?
Yes.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
Myra.
go ahead.
Yes, I want to know, is empathy a thing that can be used in everyday's life?
It absolutely can. And hopefully you do use it in everyday life. You can empathize in every conversation that you have with people. You can use empathy to create relationship, maybe with somebody that you have never met before. You can empathize with the person at the grocery store. Oh man, wow. How long have you been working? Oh yeah, it's crazy these days, isn't it? That's empathy. When you are putting yourself in another person's shoes, that's empathy. You can empathize with your friends when you talk to them on the phone. Hey, girl, what's going on? Oh, man, that's terrible. Or that person's crazy, right? So we empathize all the time. As human beings, we are naturally empathetic. I think what this day is all about, and hopefully what I've just talked about is to help you to see how you empathize so that you can do it more intentionally as you're going throughout your day. And that's what also I'm going to help you to think about when you go into the breakouts as well.